Maybe I was wrong this whole time. Maybe I sold my Lancelot stocks way too soon. Because if chapter 245 proved anything, it's that Lancelot isn't declining. He is quietly proving he might still be the strongest character in the series right now. At the moment that I drop this, I'm well aware that 245 has already been out for a week and we're on chapter 246. A lot of things happened. It took me a while to post this one, but I will be coming out with 246's review right after I drop this one, so stay tuned. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. While his power scaling is up for debate, at least in my opinion, my evaluation of his actual weight to the plot remains 100% correct, and I'll prove it. In my last video, I called him the true deuteragonist and a Deus Ex Machina, and chapter 245, it all but proves my case. Let me explain it. First, I'm going to lay out 3 points as a means to look beyond his sudden display of power and into his deep impact on the narrative. So let's get into it. Point one, the power scaling pivot, and this is mainly why I sold my Lancelot stocks. Like I mentioned in my previous video, I took the argument that Lancelot's experiences were anchors of trauma and psychologically holding him back. He seemed out of gas, and even in that fight against Escanor, I personally thought he finally reached his ceiling, or they were teasing what his ceiling was. I used direct quotes, past events, and even compared his mindset and ideologies to his own peers. And with all the evidence pointing towards a fall off, chapter 245 came along and nearly shattered that theory. It was his fight with Galahad. He reveals he was actually just experiencing the effects of Ann's ability. Her ability is called Interrogator, the ability that's supposed to, paralyze a person via immense gravitational pressure. If a person were to lie to Ann, the only way to undo the effects is to admit the lie and correct it with the truth. That being said, Lancelot regains his full power and quickly delivers a devastating one-shot blow like it was nothing, as if he hadn't been struggling with him for at least a few chapters now. And so we're forced to come to terms with his absolute strength. And the fight's difficulty was an issue of having to match bizarre magical constraint rather than a lack of strength overall. And that's even proven in Nakaba Suzuki's choice for Galahad's magical ability to block all five senses. So there's that. And that of which he was capable of resisting to the point where we actually believed Galahad was just as formidable as Lancelot. Point two, I'm going to make the ultimate Deus Ex Machina. To those of you who are new to my channel, welcome, but let me explain what Deus Ex Machina actually means. It's essentially a plot device where a main protagonist or the main protagonist find themselves in an impossible like conflict only for them to get bailed out essentially. It comes to an abrupt and decisive end, or the problem gets solved by someone or something else. Let's take a look at how Nakaba Suzuki uses this to structurally design the conflict in the series. And to do that, let's think about the other three knights. Tristan, first, constantly battles his own inner demon blood, holds back out on fear, and gets overwhelmed by his own psychological weight. Then there's Gawain. She possesses immense power, sure, but she lacks discipline from time to time and frequently runs out of magic mid fight or has to change tactics mid fight and suffers usually humiliating losses, though as of lately that hasn't been the case. Percival is the literal heart of the story, but his journey is literally filled and defined by grueling training arcs or tragic deaths, whether that had been himself or his grandfather, you name it, and steep emotional losses. They're all bound, like I mentioned all this because they're all bound by traditional shonen rules. They struggle, they fail, they grow slowly, but Lancelot operates entirely on a different level. He's completely bypassing all of the shonen BS that's, the training arcs. Or he kind of comes in and does whatever he wants. Whenever the main cast hits an impossible wall, Lancelot will always be there to function as the immediate cheat sheet. Throughout the series, just to prove this, Lancelot shows up when the fake Arthur ambushes Leonis and single-handedly terrorizes the cast, but Lancelot, he shows up and he stops that force. In fact, I truly believe that if the four evils didn't show up, Arthur would have been forced to retreat anyhow. The group faced Miles' most powerful technique. Lancelot didn't sneeze at that whatsoever. He didn't blink. He didn't need like a flashback to show like he's about to get a new form or power up. He just simply uses his mind reading to neutralize that. And even in the latest arc, when Galahad's sense blocking magic completely shut down Lancelot, he just uses zero sign that he used from his father to even the playing field. It's I mention all this because it's perhaps the biggest pattern of the series, which is why I was partial to seeing Lancelot downfall, like his downfall. It meant having a big change in dynamic for the storytelling because he's not around anymore to bail the other protagonists out when they need it. He's in the same boat, but I'll get to that in a second. However, this tension seems to deflate the moment Lancelot steps up to finish Galahad. I realize now that his purpose in this narrative isn't to have an underdog training arc like the others, it's to arrive, dominate, and forcefully push the story past its roadblocks. So that leads me right into point three, the unconventional Deuteragonist. Now, let's move past the power levels and talk about what chapter 245 actually meant for Lancelot's role in the story. This chapter officially cements him as a true Deuteragonist for the Four Knights of the Apocalypse. Think how traditional shonens handle Deuteragonists. Usually characters like Sasuke or Vegeta are rivals to, Naruto and Goku. They struggle, they fall behind, they get angry in Vegeta's case and chase the main character's shadow. But Nakaba Suzuki completely flips that trope on its head with Lancelot. Lancelot doesn't chase Percival. He's there to represent like what the standard should be for everyone else, like what they're trying to reach. He's at the end of that power scaling or where they want to be. And in chapter 245, titled The Trail of the Beast, this dynamic is perfectly illustrated through his fight with Galahad. Galahad uses his sense blocking magic. Lancelot doesn't panic or go into a massive mid fight flashback or unlock a new form. Like I said earlier, he instead used Zero Sign, which is that, again, move passed down from Bond, a legacy technique, if you will, and relies on pure, unadulterated combat intuition to secure the win. This isn't exactly what makes him a deuteragonist, rather a simple side character. One, he acts as the benchmark for the next generation. Two, the story uses his perspective to frame the scale of the threat on a scale of regular to Lancelot. How deadly is the threat? I don't know, maybe Lancelot. Number three, he bridges the gap between the seven deadly sins and the new era and just about everything. I mean, he is the son of Bond, but he's also stated to be on par in power levels to the seven deadly sins, but he's actively on the four knights of the apocalypse and the main pillar. And I think he's the main pillar because he was very much in compete mode with Galahad, but he still reacted to the threat of Kath at the end of the chapter. And Lancelot has been transparent as of late as a leader. He hasn't been a mysterious side character who shows up randomly like he used to. His insights and combat choices on top of that position him as that central pillar, as I just said. Um, so that's gonna wrap it up. I feel like this past week or so, I had to really just sit and think about what this chapter meant because I know we're going back into the threat of Kath, and as I say this, we'll probably know what's going on with the Knights of the Holy Grail and why they're back in the past. But I personally still feel like the spotlight should be on Lancelot and Galahad, and if anything, maybe a little bit of Tristan too. I really think that the world of Britannia, the world of Four Knights of the Apocalypse right now is his oyster, and his character is so it's so fragile more than it's ever been because of all of these things that he's gone through. And I think the author, Suzuki, he uses Lancelot's perspective to contextualize the true danger of the war. He isn't just a strong knight, he's also the driving force executing the plot when the main protagonist cannot. And as long as that remains, I believe my evaluations of Lancelot from the last video to be true, and I honestly think that a lot of you believe that as well too. If you stuck around to this point, please consider giving a subscribe. I'm new, but I'm hungry. I'm getting to it. Anyway, stay tuned for my next one.